Not the troublemakers right off the bat.
There was 3/4.
Booster service line with an EFG. Yeah, that'll work. So yeah, my name is Mark Drake. I am from Atlanta, Georgia. The reason that somebody from Atlanta, Georgia is here is because AGL Resources is the parent company of Elizabethtown Gas. So that's the association with the geographic location. So my background, I've been with the company for about 20 years. Well, for 20 years. It'll be 21 this next month. And my background is in liquefied natural gas. Moved over to the training side about 15 years ago in the technical training. So I'm responsible for all the training that happens at our Elizabethtown Gas facility, as well as the other facilities that we own in Virginia and Georgia and Florida. And I have a counterpart. We just merged with Nicor Gas of Chicago. So altogether, AGL serves about 4 million customers nationwide. We're the largest natural gas only distribution company in North America. Joined by Mike Redding tonight. Mike is kind of the system operations guy. He's metering and regulating. We're going to get into kind of some of the areas of his responsibility. But we got Mike here tonight to speak to specifics. You guys are probably going to be wanting to know, all the ins and outs as far as the lines that Bruce was talking about. So we got him here so that we can try to answer all the questions that you may have regarding the presentation tonight. So before we get started, has anybody in here been to any of the programs that New Jersey natural gas companies have put together as far as emergency response? So he has seen. So you've probably seen this before. Okay. So you guys can go. Y'all can go grab us some. Now make sure you get your name on the sheet as it goes around. We are responsible for putting public information and public education in front of you guys and making sure that we've got accountability regarding the regulations that we follow under. So if everybody make sure they get their name on the sheets and we get those, Mike can get those back to our office and we can make sure that you're present and accounted for. So tonight what we're going to be going over, talking about the service area that ETG is responsible for. Obviously natural gas characteristics, some of the do's and don'ts when you go up and you're responding to a natural gas incident, some things that you're responsible for, we're responsible for, things you shouldn't be doing, and what we shouldn't be doing, and what we should be doing. We're talking about gas migration and how things can kind of get a little bit askew based on the properties of natural gas. What to expect in an emergency, what your role is as far as a first responder aspect, what our role is as far as first responders, and what we're going to do when we get there, and making sure that we kind of know what each other's roles are in these events. I've got some handouts and some other information up here as far as marking out whenever there's any kind of construction that's going on, the care that's to be taken when folks have gone out and marked up our gas lines, and making sure that we're all kind of policing the community from the standpoint of construction going on, and folks are taking care of the marks and making sure that they're regarding the facilities that are in the ground. And I've got some other handouts here for a lot more information. Anytime during the presentation tonight, feel free to ask a question about anything. I do have a lot of material to cover. We've got a certain amount of time, so I'm going to make sure I'm going to be moving pretty fast. So even for a Southern boy, I speak faster than some of my counterparts. Not as fast as this guy.
Somewhat.
But I will be moving pretty fast. So just feel free to ask some questions at any point. So this is the service territory. We've got a little area over here in the Union area. We cover a lot of territory out near the Pennsylvania border, but those are the counties that you can find our facilities in. We serve almost 270,000 folks in the state of New Jersey as far as residential, commercial, and industrial customers. Now, you may not know all the terms. You don't care. It doesn't matter. But just from the standpoint of knowing kind of what you're dealing with, that line that Bruce was talking with, that is a transmission line. The partnership between Columbia and ETG happens basically right here. Correct me if I'm wrong. All right, but basically what they're doing is gas is being pulled from the wellhead. It's being with gathering lines. It's being sent across country through transmission lines. So that's the Columbia gas part right here. It's being sent to our gas metering and regulating stations. That's the part that Mike's responsible for. And from there, The gas goes to the distribution mains that are running along the roads out here, and then into the service lines into folks' houses. So that's basically the layout of how this all plays together. Basically just the most common gas product transported by pipeline, it is natural gas. There are other things, obviously, that are transported by pipeline, petroleum gas, other things of that nature, but for the most part, you're going to see natural gas in the pipelines. Now, I've got this information in this handout as well. You're not going to get to the standpoint of seeing actual distribution, at least not yet. I'm sure the technology, we have technology that we use from an electronic standpoint to know where our distribution mains are located. But for public access and for you to be able to see, there is a website that you can go to that PHMSA is in charge of. Got the address up here that you can go and see where the location is of some hazardous liquid and natural gas pipelines. So it does give the information as far as who the operators are, who's responsible, who owns those lines in those areas, but it does not contain gathering line information or distribution pipeline data. But it will provide who the operator is and folks that you can call. Matter of fact, I even think if you go and look at as far as Elizabethtown gas is concerned on this website, you'll find Mike's name listed in that website. So he is. Did you know that?
Oh man, that's
you are famous.
That's terrible.
Yeah. As a matter of fact, I think you will see Mike's name as far as who to contact in case of emergency. But this is basically kind of the area that Mike's in control of. The metering and regulating stations that we have. So it's the interface between the transmission company and the local gas company. So they basically take it from that high pressure. Obviously we're not delivering 1,100 pounds of pressure to the burner tip. We've got to cut that pressure down a lot along the way. So that pressure is going to get cut pretty significantly by the time it gets to that burner tip in your house. So we cut that pressure down. It's monitored 24/7 remotely through our SCADA operations. We have a 24/7 operation in Atlanta that's monitoring alarms and bells. Matter of fact, even when this was going on right here, I did a little bit of research on it. The alarms were going off at Columbia Gas's control room. They were seeing significant pressure drops, but it was taking them a little bit of time to try to respond to where this was happening. They were having to kind of backtrack and find out where their alarms were going off and then do their traces. At that point, it had ignited, something had set it off, and everybody was able to see where it was coming from at that point. And we'll get into kind of what caused that here in just a little bit, but that's basically the area of responsibility that Mike and his folks are here to undertake. Obviously, we try to mark all of our facilities as best we can. They're marked by those above ground signs that you see that show that there's pipeline up under the ground. They are obviously, most of the time, all the time, they're going to be located within our rights of way. And they can vary in size from 1 1/4 to 2 inches for the gathering lines all the way up to 48 inches for transmission or distribution front lines. Now, stuff like this happens. You know, they do happen. We have incidences where, you know, through third-party dig-in or like that, where we've had a corrosion incident. Things happen, but pipelines, they are important to the national economy and security. It is there. You can see all the statistics up there. 305,000 miles of natural gas transmission pipeline across the U.S. 2.1 million miles of distribution line in the ground, and 182,000 miles of liquid pipe. So most of the time, on a daily basis, all safely transporting this liquid and these gases to folks' home. And just like it says right there, according to NTSB, it's the safest form of energy transportation. Safer than transportation by truck or rail. So most of the time, the majority of the time, it's all good to go. It's just when things go up in the night that it gets a little bit hairy. And that's why we're all here. So we've got this open line of communication between what our responsibilities are, what your responsibilities are as first responders, things you should be doing and things we shouldn't be doing. I saw Bruce was having a little exercise with his emergency management team in here, and you know, they have some staged exercises, and some things that they go through. We have things of that nature too. We do tabletop exercises as well to make sure that we all know from a first responder perspective, everybody knows what their jobs are. So that's basically what this slide is trying to tell, is making sure that we've got a successful outcome in the event something does happen, that we all need to be at the scene at the same time. I hope I don't have to see you again, but in case we do, we want to make sure that we all know what we're doing. Now this may be hard to hear. Some of you have been around a while, probably know exactly what this is. I hear a bunch of people kind of look at each other, so you know.
Pipeline carrying natural gas from Maine to Texas had ignited, creating a 60-foot crater and shooting flames 500 feet into the air. First responders arrived within minutes, only to find the access roads choked with panicking residents fleeing for their lives.
So, you folks been around a while. Show of hands. See who's there? See him? There? Okay.
I live down the block.
You live down the block.
So do I. We live.
I used to live on Vineyard Road.
Oh, okay.
So was the background?
I'm on Dana's Road, so I'm right there. So
Was the background story on this that was there any kind of stolen car that was in relation to this?
well, yeah.
Okay. All right. That's what I heard.
Yeah.
Okay. So we basically have kind of a third party.
Yes, we have third-party damage.
Third party damage on this, and we'll get into some of that a little bit later. Now, I've got some of these kind of interspersed there because I can ramble on sometimes. So this kind of does give us a little variety. Show us what's happening. So the natural gas created a leak here in the controlled environment. And I've got a couple more of these, but it just kind of gives you a little bit of indication about how the gas is going to burn when it does ignite. Start at the top first, and then other things happen. Now, did you notice anything different with this one? What was that? Bottom. That's key. So what does that do? Propane. There you go. So we do, we're just having a conversation. It was Karen, right? Yeah. Yeah, with Karen earlier. She's a propane customer. I'm a propane customer. So you guys are going to be responding to all manner of energy that folks are burning in their house. So fires they are different. So just make sure that you try to have an indication of what you're doing.
Natural gas.
Is that heavier? I'm going to talk exactly.
Yeah, propane's heavier in here, so it doesn't drift up. It stays in the basement. The one thing that AGL really has done perfectly is we have a team of experts that are for arson, fire, security, and everything else. They're some very sharp individuals that are down in Atlanta. And basically, if we have an explosion or if there's a question that's going on, we have the ability to get these guys up here. So if you guys turn around and we had a gas explosion that couldn't be explained, if we had something that was really crazy that was going off, that was off the beaten trail, we can actually get one of these experts that we have. I go down to the arson investigations classes with them, with the IAAI down in Savannah once a year. They're the ones who actually set off to burn the buildings. They blow the buildings up. They line it up, so they have a very cool job because they can sit there and pop anything they want. But it's but the information that they get is you can't describe it, and they can come up and they can actually pinpoint for everybody where it is, document where we're going. So if it was, like I said, if it was somebody who's trying to commit suicide, they got the families. And it seems like that happens a lot down south. Don't want to point that finger down south, but it's there's a lot of differences between the regions going across. But if you do come across something, we do have the ability to get some experts up here and at least get some information for you. So if you need help to investigate something that's going on, it's really you can't put your finger on it. We have some experts that we can turn around and reach out to.
Hey Mike, does that team also look at and simulate terrorist attacks on the gas lines?
Basically, right now they are not doing terrorist activities going across. They're just going across on things that are happening normally that would be going on. They would turn around and, like I said, they would put gas leaks into a house. They blew up a couple cars. They actually took out several buildings going across. You know, and then they do propane. They do natural gas. They do you know, they've even done kerosene fires and stuff for space heaters from down south. So it's, you know, but they with the arson investigators that they do have that are linked with the IAAI, they have the ability to, and Jersey has the IAAI, of course, but you know, they have the abilities to turn around and reach out and get, you know, arson or terrorist experts.
Mike and I were just having a discussion right before we started the presentation tonight about wording that because we run into it all the time, people with theft of service, or we call it gas diverting. And a lot of times folks go out there and they say, well, I'll be able to pipe this in, I can bypass this meter. And a lot of times they'll bypass the regulator too. And that works real good for about 2 seconds. And then next thing you know, one of those incidents that we have, and that's where Tommy's showing up, and well, I say Tommy, the guys, our arson investigators, will show up and do their inspection and try to make sure that everything's on the up and up. So what are we responsible for as far as ETG? It's obviously we're a 24/7 operation. There are some DOT and some tariff-related services that we have to provide, from leak and carbon monoxide response to leak surveys, making sure that our stuff's not leaking. It does leak. We do have leaks. We have to find those leaks and go and repair those leaks. Let me ask you guys a question that's been around a while. Does every leak that we find immediately have to be repaired? No, it doesn't. What are the mitigating factors that play into that? Location. The amount of leak and the location. It's exactly right. So whoever said that, give you a bottle of water. And corrosion control. Obviously, that incident right there was related to corrosion. The pipe blew out because it had some corrosion on it, and we want to make sure that we are monitoring of the corrosion on our pipelines as well. Give you just a little bit of information as far as what we're doing to try to make sure our stuff doesn't happen like that. We have replaced from 2005 to 2011. We've replaced 160 miles of cast iron, 806,000 feet of service pipe. You can read the data there. We've done a lot of work to get our infrastructure a little bit more sound, a little bit more up to date. Biggest thing that we can see right there, respond to 13,200 leak calls, but the telling stuff that we have, less than 50% of those were actual leaks. 85% we responded to within 45 minutes. We have to be part of that tariff that I was talking about. We have to respond to a leak call within an hour. We've got to be there within an hour. Do we make it within an hour every time? No. Does the BPU call us we run reports for them every month. We have to report up to them the number of leak calls that we had and what our response time was. When we're not meeting that tariff response, they could fine us. So it's in our best interest to make sure that we're doing what we need to do to meet those demands. Now, getting into properties. Properties of natural gas, primarily comprised of methane. It is odorless, it is colorless, it is tasteless. But you say, I can smell gas when it's leaking. That's because we do add deodorant to it, mercaptan that we put. It's non-toxic. It's lighter than air. It will travel the path of least resistance, and it can and it will migrate. And weather factors affect how it migrates as well. It will displace oxygen and can cause asphyxiation. Old gas men back in the day, it was a common thing for on cast iron. Cast iron is low pressure, so it's nothing like that. The guy back in the day used to be able to get in a hole with cast iron, and they would get in there. They would work real good for 4 minutes, try to do as much as they could, try to step back out and breathe fresh air, and then get back in. That's not a good practice. So we've come a long way since those days. We try not to put anybody in the hole with blowing. Matter of fact, it's company policy that we don't put anybody in a hole with blowing gas. What we try to do is make sure that we control it. We try to dig back, shut off the flow, make a bypass if we can, then you can get in there and make the repair. Ignition temperatures, approximately 1,200 degrees Fahrenheit. The ignition range is between 4% gas in air to 15% gas in air. Ideal gas to air ratio is about 10%. That's going to be that's the best, bluest, truest flame that you'll have. So it doesn't take a lot of gas for it to ignite, 4%. Now, as far as the solubility, it is slightly soluble in water. Water vapor can be used to redirect the vapors due to the strong air currents created by the fog streams that you guys are used to using. However, it will not absorb natural gas because of its limited solubility. We have had, and I've seen instances where fire department's been called out to the scene. We've had things that are happening. We're trying, our biggest responsibility is to protect life first, then property second. I have seen some instances where fire departments have been out there, have created a fog stream where gas has been leaking for our guy to be able to get in and do some work. Again, there were probably some mitigating circumstances where we couldn't put a bypass on, but I've heard of that being done before. Liquid propane. So the properties of this, it is more than 90% propane, and it is stored as a liquid. So the other 10%, as Hank Hill would say, oh, they're just bastard gases. Well, that's what that means. Vapors are non-toxic, may cause dizziness or asphyxiation. The cold vapor liquid is at negative 44 degrees, and it will cause a burn or frostbite if you touch it. It's highly flammable. Vapors are heavier than air and spread along the ground. The ignition temperature is a lot lower than natural gas as well. And its range is between 2.16 and 2.1 and 9.6% propane to air is what its flammable limits are. It is odorized and is colorless. When it's released, it condenses moisture in the air to form a white cloud. Liquid propane, when you turn propane gas to a liquid, the benefit you get from it is it shrinks its volume by 270%. So that's one of the reasons why liquid propane is so prevalent, that you can store a lot of it in a little bit of a space. And it has changed to gas during cold winter peak demand. So do we use propane up here?
We do not have propane up here. Well, there is a propane hold, and it's it's way north of this area, but it's not right here.
Yeah, so I know there are propane customers, but we used to have peak shaving plants that were on our system that when we couldn't get natural gas during the wintertime, we would fire up our propane plants to put some propane into the system to be able to help us out. But that was just it wasn't propane only, it was mostly natural gas with a little bit of propane in it just to help our pressure.
You still do that?
We used to have a propane air plant that's been disbanded years ago in New Jersey, so we don't do it.
And we did away with that in Atlanta as well. There may be one, and I think B&G still does it.
B&G does.
B&G still, Virginia Natural Gas, one of our operators still does that there. Now, my background is liquefied natural gas. So, and the reason I'm telling you this is because there may be, I'm not sure, there may be some trucks that go through here with LNG on it.
There are at times LNG trucks that travel the highway, especially 78.
LNG is making a strong presence, so to speak, in the energy industry. The reasons for that is we have more natural gas in North America. I can't remember the exact statistic, but T. Boone Pickens, the old man, says that we've got enough natural gas in North America where we could burn it for 100 years and never have to buy an ounce of oil from Saudis. So why not tap into it? So the natural gas, the LNG, it's same as natural gas, only it's stored as a liquid. It's changed to a liquid by cooling it to negative 260 degrees Fahrenheit. It's 1/600th the volume. So obviously that you've got a gallon of LNG. Think about putting it in a milk carton. You'd need 600 of those milk cartons when you change it to a vapor. So you can see the benefit that you would get by turning it into a liquid from a storage perspective. So what we used to do is we would buy the cheap gas in the summertime, we would liquefy it, store 25 million gallons of it in a tank at the plant that I worked at. Wintertime comes around, we wouldn't have to buy at that huge rate. We're saving our ratepayers money. Whenever the pressure would go down, we vaporize it back up, put it in the pipeline, and make sure that we're serving our customers. So that's basically what all that says right there. burn extinguishers, natural gas, coal vapors, fire control systems for gas. So we got all that stuff. So I basically told you everything we needed to talk about. So if you do run across the instance where there's LNG being trucked across some of our interstates, basically that's a big thermos bottle heading down. There's an outer tank, an inner tank. There's some perlite insulation in between, and just make sure that you don't touch it. So we're going to get into a little bit of if anything were to happen with an LNG tanker. Obviously, you want to call ETG me. We've got the number there. I've got the stuff in the handout that you guys are obviously free to get. If this hasn't changed, these are the main three suppliers that would be, or truck carriers that would be transporting the LNG throughout the system. So I think we've got that in our handout as well. So one of the things you want to do is to find out if the truck or the cab or the trailer is full or empty. All right, and then basically size up your incident. Do you have a spill? Is there no spill? Or do you have a fire with a spill going on as well? So initiate your communications, and then basically barricade the area, or restrict all ignition sources from the area, and try to direct or restrict all individuals and traffic upwind from the area if possible. I absolutely do not use road flares.
What do you define a spill as if it vaporizes at less than 270 degrees?
I'm sorry.
But I say, what do you define a spill as if it vaporizes immediately?
Yeah, that's exactly right. It will vaporize
So
immediately.
it's not really a spill.
No,
Well,
it's
what
a
can you
spill.
have?
It will cool.
So as the
Right.
area cools, so if, let's just say that it's turned over, our relief valve that we've got on the tank, it starts building pressure. It will start relieving. When it relieves, it opens up. As the liquid starts hitting it, that vaporizes immediately, but eventually that cools down.
That cools down.
And the bigger, as the area cools, it'll be able to hold that LNG. But that's a great point, because that's initially what we want to happen. If we can control the area, let it vaporize, let it vaporize. That's exactly what we want to do.
And the one thing you want to make sure that if you do come across the tanker that's on the ground, basically where you turn around and instead of doing the water curtain, no water on LNG at all. You never want to have water on LNG. It causes the LNG, that cooling of that liquid, to flash even faster. It goes up to that 1,600 times or 600 times its own volume, and if it does ignite, it'll be disastrous. So there's never water on LNG.
We had a fire training exercise when I was at the LNG plant. We had a bunch of different volunteer firefighters, as yourself, come in. We had this one guy from the city of Roswell said, "I put anything out with water. I put any fire out with water." So Tommy said, "All right, big boy." And you go right ahead. So we've got this pit that we fill up with LNG. And I wish I could find the video, but I don't have it. But the gentleman, he got up there and he had the hose over his shoulder. Fire was and we've got a pit probably a quarter, about the size of where that wall is. It comes out to about this room right here. So it's a pretty big pit of LNG. Well, this guy's up there with that hose, and he's just letting it rip. He's doing pretty good. He's not putting it out. He was standing there so long that his turnout gear started smoking. When they pulled him back, all right, he was hot. It had melted the reflectors off of his jacket and off of his. Never got the fire out. Now, what it did do is it caused a pretty good pop, because as he was putting water on it, it iced over the top, and then there was still vaporization happening underneath it, and then that ice kind of let you loose once it could. So it was kind of interesting to watch, but to the point, you don't want to put water on it. There's something in here that talks about it and how to do it if you had to. But let's just talk about this real quick. If you don't have a spill, if you can upright the truck if the pressure is rising, if you have the ability to do that, prepare for release through the vent stack. So you'll see there's going to be a pipe on the back of it. That's the vent stack. Eliminate your ignition sources and clear the area of non-emergency personnel. If the truck is rolled over, a rolled-over truck, if vent or the gas return is frosting, prepare for that liquid discharge through that vent stack and clear out an area that would be what is in the potential firing line. Evacuate and eliminate ignition sources again, a minimum of 2,000 feet if you can, and assure that vent stack is clear of debris so that it can vent. So we don't want to let that vent line just have all access. If you have a spill with no ignition, again, be mindful of cold exposure and asphyxiation. from your LNG. Again, talking about ignition sources, evacuate a minimum 2,000 feet if you can. From a hazard containment perspective, keep the liquid away from underground piping systems. If it does start to pool and starts to travel, make sure you try to divert it, berm it up away from anywhere it might be getting into sewer systems or anything like that. Attempt to contain or direct the liquid to a safe location is basically what we just talked about. Allow vaporization or dissipate if danger areas are secure. It talks about applying water spray to vapor at a right angle from moving the vapor cloud to increase the evaporation rate. So, you know, I don't know why you would need to speed up the dissipation rate, but that's what would happen. To Mike's point is, you're just going to cause that situation to go from bad to worse. But we've got this information in here. We do have foam that could be put to retard the vaporization rate. But pretty much, if it's leaking out, you're going to want to let it just go ahead and dissipate.
Yeah, wait. First of all, you said don't apply water if it's cool. Then you say use a vapor spray.
Don't apply. The only time you would use that, basically you would call us, you would call PAPCO, you would see what's going on. And basically the only time I would see you would be doing that is if it was getting to like a foundation of a house, a school or someplace like that. Then you just want to get it away. But
so
you don't want to use water on it. You know, it's just bad.
This is the key word right here. Apply water spray to vapor at the right angle. So not in the LNG itself. So at a right angle from a moving vapor cloud to increase the evaporation. So if we, because what's going to happen is, as that vapor sits on top of the LNG, it's keeping the LNG cool. So what we're trying to tell you here is the water, you want to put it on the vapor cloud to move that away so that the top of the liquid stays hotter, if that makes sense. I don't know if I explained that very well, but that's basically what we're talking about. We don't want to put the water in the liquid. We want to put it on the vapor cloud to try to hurry up the dissipation. Now, if you do have to do a rescue, if there's a spill and it has ignited, be mindful, again, of cold exposure. And eliminate your ignition sources. Try to evacuate up to 1 mile if you can. But there's some decision points, you know, that you have to make. You need to let the LNG fire burn if rescue, evacuation, and exposure protection objectives are met. If continuing the vapor may cause future emergency, obviously you want to cool the adjacent exposure with your water spray. Another decision point: should you extinguish the LNG fire to protect and buy time for personnel and evacuees if the continuing the vapor clouds will not cause any future emergency? So, just a couple of things to keep in mind when you're talking about LNG. Now, you folks have CGIs, all right, combustible gas. Some things to keep in mind is that make sure that you calibrate the CGIs to the known gas source. So I'm not sure what type of combustible gas indicators you folks might be using, but one of the things that all the manufacturers recommend is calibrated against its known gas source. So it talks about if you use any other gas besides methane, its sensitivity and its response is not going to directly correspond to the natural gas level being measured. Now, it talks here that most CGIs are set to go off at 10% of the LEL. So again, what's the LEL of natural gas? 4%. So your CGIs should be set to where they're going to go off at 0.4, and that's going to start alarming you that we do have some traces of 4,000 parts per million of natural gas. There you go.
Now remember, your CGIs that you're carrying on you too, they're for you to get out and you to see what's going on. It's not for you to pinpoint a leak on it, the meter sets, because we've had people turn around with, you know, oh, I have a leak here, and here's my detector, and it's not the same. So basically, that's for your personal protection, your guys to get out. Don't worry.
So, as far as emergency preparedness for the local emergency responder, obviously secure the area around the leak to a safe distance as you can. Evacuate all folks, people from the area, and use barricades to limit access. If leak's not burning, you well, obviously you want to prohibit smoking, to reroute traffic around you can. Give Mike a call, give the utility a call, give us a call just as quick as possible, whether it's us or whether it's Columbia. You're going to see a video here in just a minute, but this next point talks about taking care of ventilating buildings, because a lot of times what you may do, again, remember, the upper explosive limit of natural gas is 15%. There may be gas leaking within a structure that's been there for a while, where the actual structure itself is above the 15% threshold. You go and you evacuate the building, you open the door, and you're actually letting stuff ventilate. Eventually that gas in the room is going to get to that explosive or that 10% or that 14% or 15% level, and we could have something bad happen. Some gas service lines that are installed on our system, on our distribution systems, have EFVs, or excess flow valves. You first responders know what excess flow valve is and how it operates. It's not a pressure relief. It's actually a safety cutoff. That what we try to do is we try to install excess flow valves as close to the distribution main as we can. It's a mechanism. It's basically spring loaded. It allows a certain amount of flow to go over. Whenever there's a cut or something that's been breached as far from downstream from it, the gas is going to try to rush out as fast as it can. Well, this mechanism inside this thing senses that and it shuts down, and it'll only allow a trace amount of gas to flow through. And the only way that thing can be reset is when the hole is fixed. So just keep that in mind, that we do have some areas and some residences that have these service lines have these EFBs installed on. One of the things you need to keep in mind as well: do not attempt to operate valves. Because if you do try to operate a valve, you could worsen the situation. And what we're going to do is we're going to immediately call one of our FSRs out to the location, start doing our necessary assessment that we need to do. And if we got to get other folks out there with heavier equipment, that's what we'll do. Got the number to call here. Obviously, what you want to give to the dispatch, the location, address of the cross streets, the site conditions. Basically, when you're sizing up the situation, tell everything that you can to the people that are on the other end of the line. They're going to lead you through. They've got a script. They'll ask you, but just make sure that you've got this information here. What we're going to do, we're going to get there within an hour, and we're going to assess leak severity and determine what we need to do. And like I said, we do have standby crews available. Always anticipate that an ignition could occur. Now, as far as emergency response do's and don'ts, notify the gas company immediately while en route. So you want to take advantage of ETG's expertise. Treat them all as potentially hazardous. When in doubt, evacuate structures or buildings. Look for multiple gas leaks, even if the gas is burning. We'll have a little scenario up here that will show you, and you folks know with gas migration and the way it can act, that it's not always going to be at the address where you might have been called to. So secure the affected area by doing a complete hazard assessment of the area, and use your properly calibrated CGIs again, and make sure that you turn them on outside of your gaseous atmosphere. I don't think most everybody's got intrinsically safe stuff, but just making sure, taking that extra step of precaution never hurts anybody. And only shut off above ground meter valves when absolutely necessary to protect lives or property. So this, we're not going to mind you turning these off. There's probably a good number of you that are sitting here may have done this before, have had to. This is really the only valve that we say it's okay to operate, because this is generally served one residence, and if you folks are called to a structure fire or that is being served by natural gas, this would obviously eliminate that source of ignition. So this one's fine, because this valve here generally only affecting one customer. We can handle that. It's the other stuff that we want to make sure that we're not operating. Some don'ts: make sure that you don't park over manholes or valve covers, or storm drains, or too close to structures. park in front of or downwind of the emergency location that you've been called to. Because of the way that gas migrates and the way it acts, you want to make sure that you're staying downwind of the emergency location. Don't use open flames. Don't use flares. Don't smoke. Try to eliminate any of these other sources. And again, don't operate any in-ground or underground valves. That's what these are. These are normally curved shutoffs. We've got a lot of these in the Elizabethtown area. You got to have a special wrench to cut it off. And so make sure. One of the things to keep in mind as well, a lot of these we do have that serve a single residence, but don't assume that. So if you see a valve that's encased in a valve box like that, just let us handle these types of situations. Don't turn off venting relief valves. Don't operate doorbells. Talks about don't extinguish gas fires until the fuel sources have been secured. So, you know, just because a natural gas fire is burning, we don't necessarily want to put it out. Why is that? Wherever the fire is, you can see where the gas is. So as long as there's nothing absolutely out of control, sometimes it's better to let that gas burn, and until we can eliminate the fuel. Do not turn on gas valves, and do not shut off gas service to industrial facilities without our knowledge. This can cause additional damage. Now, the next couple of slides go into why it is, because we're not like the electricity company. You lose power,